What's up, you guys, and welcome to a whole new episode of Tony Approved.
It's only your shadow here in the room, arriving too late and leaving too soon. Oh, Shadow is one of my favorite songs from Britney's In the Zone album. Welcome to a new episode of Tony Approved. Today I am going to be doing a book review on Britney's book, The Woman in Me. Now, this book has been stirring up a lot of controversy in the media, and it's starting to die down a little bit. So now is the perfect time for me to go ahead and give my Tony Approved thoughts about this whole book. This is going to be a fun breakdown for me because I've been a Britney Spears fan ever since I first saw the Oops, I Did It Again commercial where she was promoting the album.
Oops, I Did It Again, the new album from Britney Spears. 12 brand new songs, including the hit Oops, I Did It Again. In stores now.
Which was roughly around 99, 2000. So I've been excited about this book ever since she announced it. If this is your first time checking out my channel, welcome to Tony Approved. Thank you for clicking on this video. I hope that you like and subscribe so you can stay in the know of everything that Tony Approved has coming at you, which includes unboxings, more music reviews, and book reviews. For starters, I actually stopped reading. I actually read this entire book the first week it came out. I just hadn't actually sat down long enough to go ahead and give my thoughts on it. And I thought it was very interesting the different pieces that the media was actually pulling out and focusing on. But there's so much more in this pages other than Britney and Justin, her comments on other artists, and the details of her conservatorship. If you're a fan of Britney and you've been following her for a while, this really allows you to feel like you've gotten in touch with her and lets us know that Britney is back, y'all. So there were a lot of different bombshell moments in this book for me. There are a lot of things that I took away and that I was excited to learn. So I'm just gonna go through my entire list that I wrote down while I was reading the book and just talk about the different subjects that pull me in. For starters, the book starts off with giving her family history and talking about her family line. And I was very proud of a fan to actually read those pages because Britney was very vulnerable. You know, she discussed a family situation as to where one of her grandparents actually lost a child and couldn't deal with the grief. Her husband couldn't deal with her not dealing with the grief, and he threw her into a loony bin, which coincidentally cast this negative shadow over all of the men in the Spears family because that seems to be a behavior that they would repeat. And unfortunately, Britney found herself in that same type of similar situation, even as becoming one of the biggest pop stars in the galaxy. She talked about her upbringing being very strict because she grew up in a Southern household, and I can definitely agree with that. Britney grew up in Louisiana, I grew up in Florida, so I could definitely relate to that strict upbringing. And it's really weird because sometimes you don't realize how crazy it can be to be raised in the South until you talk to other people that's raised different places. For an example, my sister is dating this guy that's from New York, and he always blasts us out about the fact that we say yes ma'am and no ma'am to everything because he feels like that's like a slave response, because a lot of black people in the North don't really walk around always saying yes ma'am and no ma'am. So it's just like little things like that you may not really realize that we as Southerners have a different experience than other people do, but the strictness of a household can definitely be overpowering, especially if you're growing up from the South. It's crazy for me to hear that, you know, Britney grew up in a household where her father was slightly abusive and an alcoholic, and she dealt with jumping in the middle of a lot of arguments with her parents, which can be very traumatic to a child. A lot of those arguments sometimes seep into your subconscious and they start to show themselves once you get into your own personal relationships, which is crazy and mind-blowing to me. That's why you should never argue in front of your kids. But the fact that Britney used singing and music to an escape was a full circle moment for me because so many times growing up, I used her music and her videos as a way to escape my personal trauma that I was going in. So it just makes you feel more connected to your artist. Like, oh my God. Now, I was one of those fans that not only had CDs growing up with Britney, but I had DVDs and tapes. It was 2 VHS that I used to see in Blockbuster. It was a Time Out with Britney Spears and Britney Spears Live and More. I actually got the Britney Spears Live and More tape, which was basically a chronicle of her concert series in Hawaii at the time. But one thing that was very interesting to me is that A Time Out with Britney Spears is actually on YouTube now, and I watched it before I read the book. And it was very interesting that Britney was very consistent with her story in the book, as she was when she was first introducing herself to her fans, as far as her growing up in a very small town, Kentwood, the fact that she worked at her grandmother's deli, the fact that not a lot of people around her when she was growing up were doing the different things that she wanted to do as far as becoming a star, because that just wasn't the norm for living in the South in a small town. You'll hear that story in a lot of people's success story. It was just very interesting to hear the consistency. Boom, bombshell number one, that Britney had already smoked, drank, and had sex before her first debut album dropped, which is extremely wild to me, because as a kid, you know, seeing Britney, she was just wrapped in this whole innocent package, and it would just make you think that she spent her entire life being a little church mouse, going to church, staying away from boys, and only focusing on her music. And to hear that she had already had all these life experiences before she came into the industry just allowed me to see more of the human factor of who she is, and allow you to see a lot of the business when it comes to the music industry, because you would never think that the way she was marketed and pushed when she first came out. In fact, Britney talked about the fact that her management team really wanted to keep pushing this level of innocence on Britney, even once she got to the Oops, I Did It Again album and the Britney album. And it's just like, you don't want her to grow up. That's not reality. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that she was able to connect with a lot of young fans with her first album, which was extremely successful, went diamond and everything, and they just wanted to keep getting this money instead of allowing Britney to grow as an artist and as a human being. The love of money is always the root of all evil. A crazy interesting fact that I learned from reading this book was the fact that not only did Britney come up with the concept of her own music video, but she decided she wanted to stay up late to give a tainted love sound when she recorded her record, Baby One More Time, which you can definitely hear in the vocals, and it really explains why her vocals sound so raspy at that time, which is so cool. It makes me enjoy her vocal ability at that time even more, because I know it was a lot of comparison with vocals between Britney and Christina, and most people would see Christina eating her up only because she could hit these major high notes and they could do all of this different things. But Britney's vocal skills was nothing to be slept on either, especially when she's making these vocal decisions like that. And jumping right back into the success of this album right here, this album has not only gone diamond, but this album made Britney the very first artist to debut with a #1 single and a #1 album. So my baby girl came swinging out the gate, and not only that, she was loved by all of my favorite artists at the time, like Aaliyah, Destiny's Child, everybody. Now, as a fan, I really was looking forward to Britney kind of really diving in and indulging on what it was like to put these records together, what songs that she liked more, and different things like that. But one thing that I can say is with this book, it's really written like Britney had a story to tell, because she really didn't focus on the creation of all of her albums. She gave us a lot of details about the first album, and then she kind of skipped ahead and didn't really give a whole lot of more musical insight until we get to the Blackout album, which is what she considers her favorite album out of her catalog, which was a little disappointing to me as a fan, because I love these first 4 albums. So I really wanted to know how these records was chosen for the albums, which ones you liked more than the other, all kind of things like that. That may have had to do with Britney not actually writing her own music, so she can't really talk about the creations of the projects. But I really wish personally she would have dived a little bit more into the music scale, but I can understand why not, because she had a story to tell about the different things that she went through during these eras that was hidden behind the music. Like, boom, bombshell number 2. The fact that she faced her very first major backlash when she did her MTV performance to Oops, I Did It Again. Now, I actually saw this performance as a kid, and I was wowed and blown away by the fact that she looked so good with her see-through outfit on, and the fact that she was so confident on the stage. She gave us a performance version of the record. It didn't exactly sound like the studio record, and it took me up and it made me excited. So to hear that she got so much negativity because people saying that she was leading children down the wrong path and just doing all this negative commentary on her body, which could have possibly made Britney insecure in herself at that time, which for me just reminds myself that you have to love yourself and live for you and do for you, because sometimes you'll be making a great impact the way you always feel like you were destined to do, and that makes other people feel small and inadequate, and so they'll push that energy onto you. And if you're not mentally strong enough, it'll make you feel like you're doing something wrong, when in reality they just don't want to see you shining the way you're shining. And I feel like Britney fell into that category a lot throughout her career, especially when she makes statements like women in this industry are expected to be sexy and dumb or hot with no talent. That was a word, and it makes me realize that women have really had to fight in this world. When they say it's male dominated, It really is, and it just blows my mind that women, minorities, and gays don't all link up together, because we have been the marginalized group of people since the clear people got into power for many years now. Now, when it comes to the stories of her and Justin, it's wild to me to hear all of the details of their relationship, from the fact that they lived together, from Britney talking about the abortion, from the fact that Justin was cheating on her but painting her as a villain in the media. It really demystified their relationship for me, because it always seemed like Britney and Justin was a big major moment in pop culture, and it really sucks that even though they were a moment, that was kind of one of the most tumultuous experiences of Britney's life that kind of snowballed into all of these majorly tumultuous situations that came her way in the future. I applaud her for being so honest and so raw with what was going on during that time with her and Justin, the good and the bad, because not only do fans and us need to know to help us connect more with you, but people get tired of telling half-truths and allowing people to just walk all over them and do whatever they want to do in the media. I know a lot of people might not have wanted to hear this at this time, because Justin and NSYNC are joining back up together to do the whole Trolls movie, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. Karma always comes back around. I thought it was also very interesting that she pointed out how Justin switched his way up of talking when he ran as a Genuine, which shows that Britney is very authentic in who she is. And I really applaud that in a world where people will pander to the Black audience just for our dollar and acceptance, but aren't really here for the Black culture, if you know what I mean. Watching old videos of the way she was painted in the media about this virginity thing, the way Justin used his breakup with Britney to push forward his album, just all of that stuff was just heartbreaking. It's crazy that the media only really kind of focused on that particular story, when I've already explained several other things that she was talking about in the book up until that time that could have made great news, to give you a full focus and look into what is actually in these pages. I'm glad she didn't allow a lot of the things that she was going through at that time to disturb her spirit and who she was genuinely as a person. Even when it comes into the Crossroads era, I'm glad that she told us why we've only seen her in one major film, and that's because she had a hard time shaking off that character, which is just an honest thing. I mean, girl, if you threw yourself in that character, you had a hard time shaking off Lucy and you didn't want to do that again, I feel you, child. Don't even worry about it. But I still absolutely love that movie. And then the fact that her co-stars have come out in interviews and talked about how humble and beautiful that she was on set, and that you would have never knew that she was this mega huge pop star. So to know she was going through all of this stuff with Justin similarly around that time, around the Britney era time. Of course, the media talked about the fact that he broke up with her through text during one of my all-time favorite videos of Britney. Overprotected video is one of my favorite videos of all time. And just to know that behind the scenes she was going through all of that, it just makes it a full circle moment, just to make you realize everybody be out here going through different things. So while you're using people's music as a music lover to get you through your day, just know that some days they be doing the exact same thing, using their art just to get through their day and whatever issues that they're currently having. Now, one of the album vinyls that's actually missing from this case that I'm gonna definitely have to get is the Blackout album, because Britney has described this album as one of her favorite albums out of her catalog. I remember the day that I actually got this album. I want to say I got it from Best Buy. I think my granddad got it for me from Best Buy. Might not have been Best Buy, but I think it was Best Buy. I went home, I popped it in the CD player, I listened to it from top to bottom, and I remember my first reaction to the album just being excited and really happy with it, because it was a very up-tempo beat type album. I do remember that the media painted her in this light of like her studio company had to drag her into the studio and make her make this music because she was so wild and so just out there. But to hear the opposite to come from Britney, like no, she wasn't wild, she wasn't out there, she really put her all into that music. But because of the media scrutiny and everyone's chasing her down constantly 24/7, it made it very difficult for her to create this album. It's kind of like her strength within her pain. So I feel like that album definitely should be honored. And when she said that's a fan favorite, that really is a fan favorite. It was Britney's first album not to hit #1. It hit #2, and we've actually, as fans, pushed for that album, like done different sale or streaming parties during their anniversary to try to get that album back to #1, because that album did deserve to have a #1 debut. Give Me More is one of my favorite records that Britney has ever made, and for her to hear that is one of her least favorite videos of all times, it was another mind-boggling bombshell for me, because watching that video, I will admit it was not the best compared to the rest of her videos, but I remember the simplicity of it and just liking that. And Give Me More was one of those records, like 3, that I absolutely loved the very first time I heard it. So I think I was so in love with the record, I wouldn't even care what Britney did in the video, just as long as she was in it and it was sickening. Boom, another bombshell was the fact that Britney stated that she prayed to God for her knee injury because she was so over her Onyx Hotel tour. Now, once again, this is just 2 different coins of an experience, because as a fan, I remember loving the whole concept of the Onyx Hotel tour. Britney actually came to Jacksonville when I was younger, and when I was in the 6th grade, she was on that tour. And I remember her coming to Jackson. 6? Was I in the 6th grade? 6 or 7. No, I was in the 6th grade when she was on that tour. And I remember hearing the announcements that she was coming to Jacksonville, seeing the billboards, and being so sad that none of my family members would take me to the show. But to just know that she wasn't up there enjoying herself, and that she was over it and just wanting to just go home and take the time to really grieve her relationship and not really being able to, because they're pushing her out there trying to just make this money, makes me grateful for it too. I was also sad because we didn't really get the whole outrageous video. There's scenes of Snoop Dogg was originally supposed to be in that video, and I just knew that video was gonna be everything. But if Britney didn't want to do it, I'm definitely okay with it, and I'll let that go instead of being like, why did her knee have to be messed up? Now I could just like charge it to the game. Side note, if you would like to see that concert, I believe it's on YouTube. You can check out the entire show. There's also this underlining message throughout the book that fame is not real. It's not a reality. It's more of a fantasy world. And I'm very thankful for social media, because now as fans, we really get to defend our artists, bring up receipts, and hold people accountable. Back then, they were at the mercy of the media, who always was, their whole intention was to push their own personal narrative. The focus was never to make sure the artist was okay with whatever agenda they was painting. They just wanted to paint their own personal agenda. So people can say what they want to say about the internet now, but that's one of the major benefits that we have now, is that we get to hold people accountable. And we're able to get the whole Free Britney movement started through what? The internet. Boom! Another bombshell from the book was the fact that Britney sat down and discussed why she actually shaved her head. Now, I remember during that era of Britney, they used to have this show called Extra. They used to come on. They used to be giving a whole lot of media information. Every single day, Britney was on Extra. When she says, "This is extra, it's just she really was, because she was on every single episode of Extra. Even when she wasn't doing nothing. I remember one day they had an episode based off the fact that, oh, she's been eating a lot of fast food, and this is what Britney's gonna look like if she eats fast food every day for the next 10 years or something crazy like that. And as a kid, you're just kind of watching it and fiending for it because you're a fan of Britney. You just want to know anything about Britney. But looking at it as an adult, it's just like, wow, y'all just, once again, pushing your own agenda and not caring nothing about the artist. But anyways, Britney says that she shaved her head as a reaction to not really being able to see her boys. In the book, she really details her relationship with Kevin Federline, and Kevin Federline just seemed to be a gold digger, like someone who was walking through life with nothing majorly really going on, besides the fact that he was able to be a father and create kids, and he was a background dancer. But he had nothing really going on. He saw Britney as this lick, and you can kind of tell based off of how he treated her after the marriage and the way everything goes. It doesn't really seem like he ever really truly loved her, because if you really truly love someone, you wouldn't have treated them the way he did. But then again, maybe he wasn't a whole person and maybe he didn't know how to love. But the fact that he pushed Britney to shaving her head out of frustration of not being able to see her kids, wow, and insane. And the fact that the media just took that to the next level, pushing their own agenda, and nobody ever talked about the fact that, hey, this woman might be going through postpartum. We knew exactly what postpartum depression was at that time, but nobody was pushing it. And of course, the whole push for mental health wasn't really around at that time. But as adults, it's just wild, because it's like, come on, y'all. She had one baby and then turned around 3 months later, she was pregnant. Of course, she's gonna have some type of crazy postpartum reactions after she has her child. And that's one of them. And it's just wow that the media turned that into a whole circus. It's like, where was her family? Oh, somewhere trying to cash in. When it comes to Britney's whole conservatorship, I really do agree with her. Britney honestly should have never been on that conservatorship, because she didn't do anything major enough to be on there to show that she wasn't of sound mental mind. Yes, she was partying. Yes, she may have been on some type of prescription drug. She wasn't out here trying to take her life. She wasn't out here committing any majorly crimes or laws that would put other people in danger. And yeah, there may be some wild videos of her at that time, like trying on different wigs and speaking different accents. But I would about go crazy too if every time I walked out my door, it was 50 million people outside with cameras trying to take pictures and ask crazy questions of me. every single day. That would drive me bonkers as well, especially knowing that they're only doing this to make money off of me or to make my life miserable so they can spin their own agenda and narrative. And really, I blame the media for this whole conservatorship because I believe that's really how they were able to push that through. Besides her dad and her family conspiring against her, I think the media painted this wild, crazy picture for Britney so the public opinion can be, oh yeah, she probably is crazy. We probably need to have somebody sit in there for her. I know the conservatorship came after she had the whole breakdown at her house for not wanting to give her child back to Kevin during their while they were going through their custody battle. But why wasn't a social worker called? Why wasn't somebody called that could really make a sound decision besides calling the police for them to create a media circus, taking this woman from her home to the hospital where she was strapped down to a bed? Like, that's just wild and insane. And she didn't even put the boys in danger. She didn't even dangle them off the side of the building like Michael Jackson. No shade. She literally had them in the bathroom locked in there with her. The baby wasn't screaming. The baby wasn't not crying or doing anything wild. Like, it's just, that's the saddest part of the book. Just listening to how she was put under that conservatorship, to hear the fact that she went through it with it just so she could be able to see her boys. It's just like a prison. Like, and it's wild that she experienced that. Like, wow. And the fact that her mom, who supposedly had her back so much growing up, turned around and was selling books and giving away her clothing and different items like that just to get money off of her, never really being there for her. That's devastating. That really is. For her to really be out there and be basically all alone. She had nobody truly in her corner that had her best interest. The line of her dad stating to her that he was Britney Spears now just really just shows how much of a villain and a monster he is. Chapter 33 was actually my favorite chapter of the book because this is where Britney actually admits that at some point during the time she just kind of started going with the motions. She really wasn't into it. The light had gone from her eyes, and she talked about her fans actually recognize it. And I am a fan that definitely recognized it from day one. I remember typing in a YouTube comment when Womanizer came out and said, oh my God, something looks off. And Britney fans was attacking me. What? You don't like the song? What are you saying? She's fine. She's good. Yada, yada, yada. But as a fan that has been following her, I know what Britney looks like when she's enjoying herself. The last video that she looked like she was enjoying herself really and was all there really as Britney will probably be something like Do Something or My Prerogative during that time era. But anything from Circus or Femme Fatale, I could just tell that Britney just wasn't there. And I always thought I was just crazy. I would say that to other people and no one would see what it is that I was talking about. So for her to actually admit it on her own was like a full circle moment. It's like, yeah, Britney really is my girl. Like, girl, we here. I know what's going on. And it also, for me, explains why Britney no longer wants to make music. Like, who would want to do this anymore after you've been forced to do it? Something you absolutely love and enjoy, now you're being forced to do it just to see your kids, or because you have no absolute choice. Artists have to have time to be able to breathe, to live life, to be free, so they can create their art based off of the experience, based off of their experiences and the experience that they're witnessing from others. So if you're not able to do that, of course, your light would start to dim and you would become a robot and no longer really be an artist. One of my favorite parts of the book, honestly, was hearing her story of being trapped in that hospital after making her Glory album, which, by the way, Glory's is the album that she felt like she was coming back to herself. And I remember feeling that when I heard it in the music. It was like, oh, this is taking me back to my first 4 classic Britney albums. I'm really, or 5, including Blackout. I really love Glory album. And as a fan, I can definitely tell Britney that it came through, that you was pushing through, girl. And once again, makes me love the internet because the fact that she found out about the Free Britney movement while being on lockdown in the mental health facility just lets her know, like, God always is looking out for you. And she even discussed that in the book about having a love for God and knowing that it was only him that brought her through that time period, even though she stopped believing in him at one point. It just shows you the power of God. I have a strong connection with the Lord, and I love to hear that my favorite artists have strong connections with the Lord. And the fact that she loves her gay fans. Like, the fact that Britney loves the Lord and her gay fans, Beyonce loves the Lord and her gay fans, Aaliyah loves the Lord and her gay fans. Like, that just takes me over the moon. That my favorite Brandy loves the Lord and her gay fans. Mariah loves the Lord and her gay fans. Like, the fact that these are artists that I really admired musically and look up to and use their music to help me get through, the fact that they have their own spiritual connection just makes me feel like we're all connected in this great circle of life type thing. Like, you were really put here for me during this time for me to enjoy your art and music. And it just makes me really appreciative for my musical connection with my favorite artists. Britney does say that she's going back into the lab to come up with a part 2 to this book. And if I see it, and in my mind, I see her being a little bit more detailed with things that were going on in her life and her feelings about certain things outside of what she already talked about, giving us an update on what's currently in her life and how she's feeling the move. Because like I said, this book was really written like Britney had a point to prove, but I do feel like there may be some holes that she left out or different stories that she left out that her fans would love and enjoy. So I'm definitely looking forward to book 2. I love the fact that the title of The Woman in Me really connects back to the fact that Britney's celebrating the woman in her that never gave up the fight, that kept pushing through, that was strong enough to go through all of these crazy things and still make it out on the other side. Powerful, 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 and definitely one of my favorite books I've enjoyed. Haven't had a chance to sit down and read it since I read it for the first week, but I'm definitely gonna pick it up and reread it now that I've made this video, because I truly enjoyed this. And I love the fact that Britney's no longer silenced, that she's back, that she's telling her story. I feel like I have one of my favorite artists back, and it is such an amazing feeling. If you have not got a chance to yet, definitely go ahead and check out Britney's memoirs, because it is definitely Tony approved. I am really excited to see what Britney comes up with in the future. And that is all I have for you for this video. I really hope you enjoyed the different pointers that I pointed out. Drop down in the comment section if you actually read this book and there were different things that you liked, and let me know the different parts of the book that stuck out to you the most. And if you really and truly enjoyed this video, tell a friend, like and share, like and share so we can get these subscribers up. You hear me? I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And until next time, God bless. And I'll see you back soon with brand new content.